Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. So today I am back to do the first video in a slightly odd series, but it's one that I've definitely seen people do before, which is where they go through their previous book haul from a year past, from the previous year, and kind of track now, a year on, have I actually read all of these books? When I think of this concept, I think particularly of Greg from Supposedly Fun. I have been absolutely loving his book haul revisits. I think he's been doing them for about 3 years now, and I think especially because I am thinking off my TBR, I've been really trying to whittle it down this year. I've gone from about 65 books, I want to say, now to around about 20. But I will confess that not all of that has been due to me reading every single book. Unfortunately, sometimes the reason that a book is no longer on my TBR is not because I've read it, but because I've either DNF'd it or realised that I wasn't actually interested in reading it and I have ended up passing it on. Or somewhere in the middle where I've taken it off my TBR because I don't want it to be on my immediate books to read, but I do still want to hold on to it. I think Greg refers to these as his library builders, things that you want to have on hand in case you want to dip in and out of them or have them for a future point. But in terms of my immediate reading, there are especially a lot of history books where I do want to have them. Eventually I might want to read them cover to cover, but more so they are for reference for me, and so I've just taken them off my official TBR pile. I'm starting to do this series now because it was actually June 22 when I actually started really making an effort to record every single book that I hauled through the medium of my book hauls. So we're now up to a full year of me showing every single book I've bought as and when I've bought them. I can tell you that in June 2022 I bought 10 books, and so let's just go through them and see, have I read them? What did I think? What have I learned from the experience of buying and reading, or maybe not reading, these books? So the first book on my June haul was The Women of Troy by Pat Barker. I had previously read The Silence of the Girls, and The Women of Troy was the sequel to that. This series is kind of intended to look at the female perspective of the Trojan War, and this is very much following the aftermath, what was happening to the women after the fall of Troy. And unfortunately, this very first book, I will have to confess, I DNF'd. I am definitely very much sucked in to Greek myth retellings, particularly when they are from a female perspective. So I feel like, especially in this past year, I've been acting like these Greek myth retellings are like Pokemon and I want to catch them all. And I think I am just realising that not all of these are for me. I wasn't actually that fussed on The Silence of the Girls. I think I gave it a 3 stars, so I don't know why I was so intent that I had to have The Women of Troy and that I had to read it. I got about 50 pages into it and I wasn't feeling anything. I realised that I was just reading it to be able to say that I've read it, and there were plenty of other Greek myth retellings that I was much more excited about and that I wanted to get to. So ultimately I have decided to put this aside. I'm probably not going to go back to this one. Thankfully, the next book that I picked up, Clarice Scram by Lauren Child, is a book that I bought and I read pretty much straight away. So Clarice is a children's book series which I absolutely loved when I was a kid. I never really got into the little picture books, but I loved her novelizations of Clarice. And so when I found out back in December of 2021 that she had a Christmas book coming out, and then later in summer she brought out this book, Scram, I was so excited and I just pounced on both of these books and read them. Brought me back to being about 8 years old and I loved the experience. Book number 3 is another one that I did read pretty much straight away. That was A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin. This is definitely around about the beginning of me getting much more into romance books and reading them much more regularly. Really enjoyed reading this. I love the romance build up in there. I will point out to any romance readers, this is a romance that does not bang, which was a question I did get several times when I mentioned I was reading it, so there you go. Whether or not that's something that you're into, I leave up to you. And I'm actually really excited for Sophie Owen's next book, which is A Lady's Guide to Scandal. That's coming out later this year. It's actually a trio of romance books that I bought and read straight away. So the next one we have is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akwaeke Emezi, which I actually did a whole video on, and I'll link that down below for you, because basically when I was reading this, my brain went down this whole rabbit hole of all of these different bookish connections that I was making, different ways that the plot of this book or the characters, things that they would say, would link in my head to other books that I'd read. And I was just amazed by how many different things this book made me think of. Definitely not like a favourite romance book. I find it hard to think of this as a romance purely because I didn't really like the romance aspect. But in terms of Akwaeke Emezi's writing style, I thought it was really great. And one of the last contemporary books that I've read for quite a while. I think the last romance book on this list was When a Scot Ties the Knot by Tessa. This is one that I actually picked up after having listened to the audiobook, so I had technically read it already. And this is kind of tied with Red, White and Royal Blue for my favourite romance book of all time. Obviously, I've not read that many romance books, but it has such a solid place in my heart. I love this book. I recommend it to everybody who's getting into romance. It is genuinely one of my proudest moments on BookTube, the fact that Scot from Gunpowder Fiction and Plot read this, kind of feeling the same as I was, kind of skeptical about it, and then ended up loving it. I'm just really pleased about it. Just like, yes! And I know for a fact that I have convinced at least 2 other people to also read this, and they've also ended up loving it. So Yay! And I'm kind of shocked with myself that I've still only read one of a Tessa Dare book, and I love that book as well, so why am I not reading more Tessa Dare? This is the main learning from this video, is that I need to read more Tessa Dare. Next book that I bought was Anne Boleyn, the second book in the Six Tudor Queens series by Alison Weir. You will know all about my journey with these. I did a whole review video, which I think is about 30 minutes long, on the entire series, which I will also link down below for you. I think I ended up rating this like third or fourth, maybe fourth. Anne Boleyn would definitely top my list in terms of my favourite of the Six Wives. Yes, I am very basic, one of it. I just find her an incredibly intriguing figure. I don't know necessarily if I would like her, but I find her very interesting. But I knew going into it that Alison Weir kind of has a little bit of a sceptical, slightly negative opinion of Anne Boleyn, and I could definitely see elements of it, which kind of made it a little bit less enjoyable for me. Though still, it's a story of Anne Boleyn's life. I'm always going to find it interesting. I also picked up Katharine Parr, once again, another book from this haul that I have read. Also really enjoyed this. I think this one came third on my list. I might actually be swapping them around in my head. I ended up liking Katharine Parr a lot more than I thought I was going to. I find Katharine Parr a little bit hard. I know everybody is currently like loving Katharine Parr, saying that she's the best of the Six Wives. I still don't know about that. I feel like she made some really stupid decisions for how smart people say that she was in her time as Henry's queen, and I still cannot get over the whole Thomas Seymour Elizabeth stuff. It just really icks me out. But I did really enjoy this final instalment in the Six Tudor Queen series, especially getting to learn more about Katharine Parr's life before Henry. Obviously a lot of it is fictionalised, but it made me think about her in a very different way. Book number 8 that I hold was The Time Traveller's Guide to Regency Britain, which is the 4th book in the Time Traveller's Guide series by Mortimer. This one is actually one of the books that I have taken off my TBR and is technically like a library builder. It's one that I have full intention of getting to eventually, but it's not on my immediate TBR. But I do want to get around to it because I want to do a video that is all about the Time Traveller's Guide series and how they function as kind of beginner's history books. So yeah, definitely watch this space. You might be seeing this on a TBR video coming soon. Penultimate book that I hold for my June book haul was The Case of the Married Woman by Antonia Fraser, which is a history of Caroline Norton. I found this one in a charity shop in London, and because it had been out in hardback for so long and I was kind of giving up on the hope that they were going to come out with this in paperback, I hadn't seen like an Amazon listing for the paperback. I picked it up when I saw it, and then a month goes by and the paperback just magically appears in the shops. So annoying, but oh well. And I really enjoyed this one. I know Antonia Fraser has recently come out with a biography of Caroline Lamb. She just seems to be going through this phase of writing biographies for controversial Carolines, and I have to say I'm loving it. I'm very much looking forward to reading that one. The final book for this Did I Read My June 2022 book haul video is Joan by Chen. This is not actually one that I bought myself, but I was actually sent for review by the publisher. Historical fiction chronicling the life of Joan of Arc. Definitely, once again, with fictionalizations in there. This is one that I ended up saving for History-a-thon back in March, and I really enjoyed this. I wasn't sure how much I was going to, but I just really enjoyed Chen's portrayal of Joan, especially considering how little we have to go on for her early life. It's just this really sad, tragic portrayal of a young girl who is being used and abused by everybody in her life, who is trying to find her own strength. But ultimately, if the people who are in power don't care about you, then there's very little that you can do. For all of these books that I have read, I will link below either the individual book reviews that I did for them or the monthly wrap-ups where they appear. But yes, looking back on my June book haul, I ended up reading 8 of the 10 books in this past year. DNF'd one and then it took one off of my TBR. So for me, I'm pretty satisfied with that. I feel like other months might do better, other months might not be quite as good. I've especially recently been having a bit of a reckoning with my TBR and taking out things that I just don't think I'm going to get to. So I feel like there will be more damage done in future haul revisit videos. But for right now, my June books, I would say, were a success. Do let me know if you've read any of the books that I've spoken about today, what your thoughts were about them, and also would you be interested in seeing future videos like this? I do think it's good to kind of take stock of your buying, and I think it is going to force me to be a little bit more intentional with my book buying, which is never a bad thing. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.